Hello guys, this is Oroth and a warm welcome back to my channel. I know that a lot of people has been struggling when it comes to performing in Gauntlet 3, and I know that this has also led to some frustration, and I have been thinking if there is any way to make it a little bit easier to actually make it. And after some theory crafting, I have actually come up with a very good idea when it comes to team composition. And we're gonna go through that in this video. Before I begin, I would also like to urge you, if you like this type of content, to please subscribe to my channel. And I will always try to make videos that is educational and that is beneficial to the viewers. So hopefully you will be able to learn a thing or two by watching my videos. But enough said about that. The concept of this video is to come up with a perfect duo between two necromancers. So before starting to watch the video now, you can use this video when you go out to gather your own team, and the purpose is that you're gonna have two necromancers in each party, and I'm gonna explain the synergy between these two necromancers that will benefit the whole team. So that's the concept of this idea, and I've actually been trying it out. I've not tried it many times. I just gathered a few necromancers and a couple of other players, some of them strong, some of them quite strong, but it was definitely not an optimal team. And using the strategy, we actually managed to achieve a very good time, almost below 13 minutes. But I'm quite sure that when we work harder on this, we're gonna be able to push this time down a lot. And we're gonna dive straight into the secrets of this idea together now. So let me first go through the timeline of this video. First, I just want to give you a little bit of theory crafting. Just what my thoughts were before going into this process of finding out a good way to do the Gauntlet 3. And after that, we're gonna look at which skills the two necromancers will use. After this, we're also gonna look at which set the necromancers should use. Then we're gonna dive deeper into the essences. And then we're gonna look at some key stats that are required for this to work properly. And in the end, we're also gonna go through the skill rotation and showcase it so that you will understand it better. And I just want to make it clear now that even though this video is explaining a duo between two necromancers, this is beneficial for everyone in the team. And this video will therefore be useful to anyone, even if you're not a necromancer. Because when you're gonna gather your team and you want to optimize little details in order to achieve a better result, then you need this knowledge, according to me, in my opinion. So this is what we're gonna talk about in the video. So let's start with the theory crafting segment. There is several things in the Gauntlet 3 that is a lot more difficult than it usually is. And as a matter of fact, it doesn't matter if you go into the Gauntlet with 8 super strong players if you don't think about the team composition. And the good thing is that you don't have to be super strong in order to actually finish Gauntlet 3. Of course, you need some strength, but if you're really focusing on the minor details, you will actually be able to outperform another group with a lot stronger players. So please listen carefully and try to let everything sink in as we go on here. But first of all, we need survivability. It doesn't matter if you are a weaker player or if you are one of the strongest players on your server. If you go into the Gauntlet 3, you will be one-shot by many boss skills. So in order for this to not happen, we need survivability. So that was the first thing I was thinking about, that okay, my concept for Gauntlet 3 has to include survivability. After that, we also want to utilize buffs. So I need a concept that also somehow includes some types of buffs. And luckily, I'm a necromancer, and we have quite a palette of different options that we can use. It's also very important to have a concept that also incorporates debuffs. So this is also something I was thinking about in my thought process. And finally, if you have watched my previous videos, you have seen that I am able to do a lot of damage. And I've been showcasing this by showing videos from the training dummy, where I have tried out different builds and managed to achieve very high and good results. But the problem is that the training dummy is not like the real world in the Sanctuary, and especially not in Gauntlet 3. And I know that a lot of people, or at least some people that has watched my videos at the training dummy, has said that this build will never be viable outside of the training dummy. But I was thinking to myself that, okay, of course this will be quite difficult to replicate in Gauntlet 3, for example, but maybe there is some way, if I just bring in my teammates and we synchronize perfectly, that I will actually be able to almost achieve the same results in Gauntlet 3. So I was thinking to myself, this will probably not be easy, but it can be done, probably. But I have to think hard. And that's what I did. I've done some hard thinking, and I think that maybe I'm not there yet, where I will be able to make as much damage in Gauntlet 3 as I do on the dummy. But I'm getting there, actually. And you will see in this video why. Okay, but enough said about that. Let's move on and talk about the skills. The skills that both necromancers will use are actually the same for both of them. So we're going to use Bone Spear, we're going to use Command Golem, we're going to use Command Skeletons, we're going to use Skeletal Mage, and we're going to use Bone Armor. So these are the 5 skills both of the necromancers will use. And if we look on the set, we're not going to use the same set, both of us. Because there will actually be one necromancer, and it should be the strongest one, that is more focused on DPS, while the other necromancer is more focused on support. And the DPS necromancer should use 6 pieces of Shepherd, while the support necromancer should use 6 pieces of Vitus Urge, or 4 pieces of Vitus Urge and 2 pieces of Shepherd, or something else. You can mix it up there a little bit, but 4 pieces of Vitu is important for the support necromancer. If we start by looking at the essences we're gonna use Skullveil as the DPS necro. We're gonna use Parting Gift. We're gonna use Festering Wounds. We're gonna use Undying Malice, Wicked Husker, Corrosive Slab, Pleasant Venom, and Vishrae's Coffin Lid. We're not gonna dive too deep into why we have made these choices here now, but you will understand this later. I can say, let me put on the pointer here, I can say that there are some things that are optional. In this video I suggest that both of the necromancers should use Pleasant Venom to apply the debuff with the Poison Golem, but of course you can mix it up a little bit with the Golem types. And you can also maybe switch out Wicked Husker, try. But the general idea is that you can use these essences as the DPS Necromancer. I could also say that perhaps that you can switch out the shoulders for the Knockbrod, but it also depends on what the rest of your party looks like. Since I deal a lot of damage, I want to optimize my own damage as much as possible when I do Gauntlet 3. So therefore I pick this shoulder, but you could definitely use Knockbrod as well. It's also a good choice. If we look at the support Necromancer, I want that Necromancer to use Coals for Eyes, Parting Gift, Knockbrod Skulls, Undying Malice, Pleasant Venom, The Prong, No Rest, No Peace, and Corrosive Slab. And basically, as you can see on the DPS Necromancer, he will not be using No Rest, No Peace. So the support Necromancer will use No Rest, No Peace instead, together with Coals for Eyes. And I have to say that this combination with Vitus Urge is amazing, because it basically means that Vitus Urge effect and attack speed effect from No Rest, No Peace will be up all the time. And this is why we also include the Prong into this build. There may be some choices here that maybe seem a little bit strange, like why would the support use Corrosive Slab when I already use it on the DPS Necromancer? But this will be clear why in the end of this video, when we dive deeper into how the build and the synergies actually work together. So I think this is enough said about the essences. Okay, now we have reached this very important segment, and it's important now to listen carefully, because if you don't focus on the details I'm gonna bring up now, the concept presented in this video will not work as well as intended. And we're mainly gonna focus on cooldown reduction. And let me get to it. We can start by looking at the cooldowns on these three Necromancer skills. And this is the base cooldown. Let me put on the pointer here again. First of all, we have the Skeletal Mage, and it has a base cooldown of 8 seconds. Then we have Bone Armor with a base cooldown of 20 seconds. And finally, we have Command Golem here with a base cooldown of 36 seconds. And what do we read from this? Okay. The problem here is that the skill rotation is out of sync. They are not synchronized. And yes, we have Bone Armor in the team, which is very good because we have 2 Necromancers, and that will make it easier already. But we want the 2 Necromancers to sync perfectly without losing too much damage. Because the main issue when you bring in Necromancers is that their main source of damage is from summons. And usually the summons die immediately in Gauntlet 3 if you don't plan really carefully. And this is what we're aiming to do here. So the point of bringing in 2 Necromancers is to bring survivability to the group, to bring buffs to the group, to bring debuffs to the boss, and to also bring summon damage. And as you remember in the Theorycrafting segment, this was the 4 pointers I had in my head going into my thought process. And I am fairly happy with what I have come up with. But in order to maximize all of these 4 things, I mean the survivability, the buffs, the debuffs, and the summon damage, we need the Necromancers to synchronize with each other. And if we look on the base cooldown of these 3 skills, they are not in sync. And with this I mean that we actually want the cooldown ratio between these 3 skills to be 4-to-1. And with that I mean over a period of time, you want to be able to use exactly 4 skeletal mages, 2 bone armors, and 1 golem. And it will be clear to you why we want this. And this is not the case when we look at the skills right now, because this is not the ratio we want. So what method will we use in order to achieve this? Yes, we want to adjust cooldown reduction on, we want to micromanage it. And we can't just put in 10 or 20% at random. We need to precisely make sure that each skill has the correct amount of cooldown reduction. And luckily for you, I actually have the answer to this. So let's look at the solution. We can start by looking at the Skeletal Mage. As I told you, the base cooldown of Skeletal Mage was 8 seconds. And yeah, let me put off the pointer here because it's lagging a little bit. There we go. Yeah, the base cooldown of Skeletal Mage was 8 seconds. And when we add 12.5% cooldown reduction to Skeletal Mage, you can see the calculation there that it will be 8 seconds times 0.875. That's 12.5%. And that equals 7 seconds. So if we have 12.5% cooldown reduction on the Skeletal Mage, the new cooldown will be 7 seconds. If we then move on and look at the Bone Armor, it should have 30% cooldown reduction. And this is actually the capped value. You can't have higher cooldown reduction than 30%. And this will give us, from a base value of 20 seconds, if we multiply it by 30% or 0.7, the new cooldown will be 14 seconds. And lastly, on the Command Golem, we need 22.5% cooldown reduction. And this will give us 36 multiplied by 0.775 or 22.5% equals 27.9. So by applying these cooldown reduction values onto the different skills, we're actually achieving our goal. And it's almost perfect ratio 4:1 as we wanted. So yeah, I will also show you in the end of this video how it actually works together. And we will also go through the skill rotation and why it's so important that we have this ratio. But first, I'm going to show you how I did it to achieve these cooldown reduction numbers. But of course, there are other ways as well to do it. But if you want to copy my way of doing it, go ahead if you can. So let us begin by looking at these 3 items. And if you remember, I said that we want to have 12.5% cooldown reduction on the Skeletal Mage. And therefore I have put in 4% skill cooldown on my gloves, 4% on Shepherd and Mother, and I also get 4.5% from a rank 8 Bottled Hope. And remember now that this affects all of the skills. So we still need more cooldown reduction on the Bone Armor and on the Golem, and but we don't want to add general cooldown reduction, because if I would start putting on more rings with the cooldown reduction, for example, or a necklace, then it would lead to the cooldown reduction on the Skeletal Mage to become too high, and then we don't achieve this perfect cooldown ratio between the 3 skills we've been talking about. But luckily there are ways to pinpoint certain skills and to change the cooldown reduction. And if we look here, I have done so through the awakening effect. And if we look at the corrosive slab here, one of the offhands, the awakened effect gives a 10% cooldown reduction to the golem, to the command golem skill. So remember, we already had a 12.5% cooldown reduction on the skeletal mages, and we wanted 22.5% on the golem, and we already had 12.5% from the general cooldown reduction from the previous page, and then we add 10 more percent here, and that's exactly 22.5%. That's what we want. And finally, we wanted to have 30% cooldown reduction on the bone armor, and 30% cooldown reduction is also the cap value. So even if you go above 30%, it will not reduce the cooldown further. And here you can see that I have awakened the pants slot, the legs, and also the chest piece, which gives us a total cooldown reduction on the bone armor at 20 plus 12.5. So that's 32.5, but it's capped at 30%. So basically, by doing what I have done here, I have achieved this perfect cooldown ratio. So let us look now on the skill rotation. And before we do that, I want to say that I understand that not everyone can awaken an item. If you can, I recommend you to get a couple of 1-star gems and perhaps 1 2-star gem to rank 10, because the awakened effects are very strong. And if you want to, you can awaken all of the slots, and the effect will only be active when you have a rank 10 gem in it. But even if you only have 2 rank 10 gems, if you want to, you can actually awaken all 8 slots just to have versatility and be able to move around gems in order for which effect you want, depending on which effect you want. So yeah, but if you're not able to use awakened effects, this concept will still work fine, but the cooldown ratio that we talked about will not be perfect, but you can still use this concept. Or you can also look for, when you're gathering a team for Gauntlet 3, you can try to look for necromancers who are able to pull this cycle off perfectly. So let us talk about the skill rotation. I'm first going to go through it, tell you how it's done and why we do it. And then I also going to show a short video so that you will understand it better. So what we want to happen, let's pretend now that we are engaging a boss in the Gauntlet. And before you engage the boss, you have agreed among yourselves that one of the necromancers should use the first bone armor. And preferably you will be on voice, on Discord for example. You can of course do Gauntlet without it, but it's a lot easier if you can talk with each other, so I highly recommend it. But let's say now that we are approaching the boss, and we always walk in together slowly to trigger it while we're all inside at the same time to get a good start. And what we want to happen, as soon as the boss can take damage, both necromancers should use the command golem first, followed by the skeletal mage. And when that has happened, then the first necromancer use bone armor. And here you communicate, so you can say 3, 2, 1, start skill rotation. And then you use command golem, skeletal mage, and then the first necromancer uses bone armor. After 7 seconds, the cooldown will be ready on skeletal mage again for both the necromancers. So then immediately when the cooldown is ready, you spawn the skeletal mage, and then the second necromancer applies bone armor. After 14 seconds, then skeletal mage will be ready again. So both necromancers uses the skill, and then the first necromancer uses bone armor again. Because as you remember, The base cooldown of bone armor was 20 seconds, but we have added cooldown reduction, so now it's 14 seconds instead. And as you can see here, we lowered the cooldown reduction from 8 seconds to 7 seconds on the skeletal mage. And if we wouldn't have done that, we would already be off sync. But anyways, at 14 seconds, both necromancers summon their skeletal mage, and then immediately after, the first necromancer uses bone armor. After 21 seconds, same thing again. Both necromancers use skeletal mage, and the second necromancer use bone armor. And after 28 seconds, we have finished the cycle, and we're gonna repeat. So we're gonna do exactly the same thing again. So both necromancers, they start by summoning command golem, and then skeletal mage, and then the first necromancer uses bone armor. And then you can just repeat this forever. And the good thing about this is, after the first step, where the first necromancer uses his bone armor, after that point, both necromancers can just use golem, mage, and bone armor whenever the cooldown is ready. You don't have to wait a second or two for the cycle, for the skill rotation to be synchronized. And that's the beauty of it. It's very easy to keep it going. If you want to practice this, you can go together with another necromancer and go together with the Gauntlet team, and you can just try this skill rotation, and you will see that it will go on forever. And always initiate this cycle with the command golem. So also when 28 seconds has passed, you always do command golem first, then skeletal mage, and then bone armor. Because if you happen to be a second off somewhere previously in the cycle, this resets it so that you're back on track. So that's also a useful tip. And the magic of this is that every 7 seconds, a new batch of bone armor will be applied to the whole party, including the summons. And it's also constructed in a way so that the bone armor is applied exactly the moment after you have summoned your skeletal mages. So this actually means that if you do this perfectly, your summons will not die. Because especially with a lot of summons, they mitigate a lot of damage. So if there's only one target for the enemy to hit, they will hit that target only. But if there are 20 targets to hit, each target will take 20 times less hits. So it's very, very strong if you manage to pull this off. So yeah, that's basically the idea. And also it's important, I have to say, that you stick together in your parties. So for example, if one of the other people in the group wanders off and becomes separated from the group, when one of the necromancers uses bone armor, that player will not get it. So it's very, very important to stick together as close as possible. Of course, it's sometimes difficult, but then you have to communicate. Like you can make a countdown when bone armor is 3 seconds away from being ready. Then people have to come closer to you. So communication is very important. So yeah, this is basically the concept of this build. I know that this is not a walkthrough where we look at each boss and how to do it live, and I'm gonna do this in the future. But before I do that, I want to really try to find the optimized strategy for each boss, and I'm gonna make a thorough guide on that as well. But I'm quite sure that if you are able to pull this concept off with 2 necros in each party, you will probably be able to beat Gauntlet 3 a lot easier. So I wish you the best of luck. And before we end now today's video, let's look just on a short video as well, where we see the skill rotation. So let me just press play here, and we're gonna watch it together. So as you can see now, you use Golem, then you use Skeletal Mage, followed by Bone Armor. And bam, there you use the second Skeletal Mage, and then the second Necromancer would have used its Bone Armor. Now, Skeletal Mage, Bone Armor. And in 3 seconds, you use Skeletal Mage, and the other Necromancer will use Bone Armor right after. And as you can see now, the cycle will repeat itself. We start with Golem, then we do Skeletal Mage, and then Bone Armor. And from this point on, we can just repeat. Whenever a cooldown is ready, we can just click the button, and it will work in perfect sync if we have managed to compose the cooldown reduction as discussed in this video. So yeah, I hope you like this concept and this idea. Please let me know if you have any success using it, or maybe you have some other tips about how to make it easier in Gauntlet 3. Please share them down in the comments. And as I said in the beginning of this video, if you like my videos and if you want more content like this, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel. And you can also, if you want to, add me on Discord. My username there is AurothKuro. AurothKuro. I will put it down in the description as well. And there you can share your builds with me, and I can give you some tips, especially for Necromancers, because that's what I'm more of an expert in. But of course, general questions about the game, if you want to know more, feel free to hook me up on Discord. You're very welcome. And yeah, that's everything for this video. And before we say goodbye, I want to wish you a very nice day or a very nice evening. And to all of my clan members in Kuro, I of course want to tell you Abrath El Omno Kuro. See you guys later. Bye bye.